Hi guys, this is Kat Goldberg from Mozen, and I'm here with the ABCs of cannabis. Um, this is our second installment in the series. The first one we'll put a link to that you can watch. It's A for anxiety, and this week we're covering B is for brain health. So, in a similar vein to the anxiety video where we talked about how it helps some people and it actually makes some people's anxiety worse, brain health is a very, very complicated topic, an extensive, complicated topic, and I just want to come to you guys with some very basic information and start the conversation there. So there are a couple of things to keep in mind that we know already. For the developing teenager brain, cannabis use can stunt certain cognitive functions. Not good for people under the age of 18 or 21. There have been studies with mice that show that when senior mice use cannabis, they solve problems and remember more than the mice who didn't use cannabis, which is really interesting. So on one side, we have the developing brain and saying cannabis, like stay away, cannabis is not good for the developing brain. But then we look at it with the older brain and we say, maybe, is it protecting it in some way? None of this has been conducted with human subjects because cannabis is still a federally illegal drug so that's why there hasn't been very much research. We really have to look at research from out of the US to see what's going on. But there are a couple of things that I think are interesting here. The first is that, like, we talk about brain health. Like, what does that mean? I think it means, being able to go about your day with confidence, knowing that you can get what you need to get done, being able to remember what you have to remember. And the three, pillars that cannabis really helps with are pain, sleep, and stress. And my theory, at least this is how I kind of think about it, is that if you have your sleep and stress and pain management under control, you're going to be living the best version of yourself. So it's interesting when we talk about brain health, this is why I'm bringing it up in this way. So people with Alzheimer's may benefit from cannabis use. Cannabis isn't necessarily doing anything with the Alzheimer's itself. It may be, which is really interesting, but it can't be proven yet. But what it's doing is it's dealing with the symptoms of it, the depression that comes on, the agitation, and because it's helping with those symptoms, it's improving quality of life. There's an interesting topic that's being discussed right now kind of on the down low, and that is cannabis use and concussions. So the theory behind this, and obviously there have been no human subjects, it's only been done in mice, but the idea is that when a traumatic event happens to the brain, a toxic plaque builds up in neurons, and that toxic plaque is like the residue of the concussion. And there have been studies that some show that cannabis actually eats up that toxic plaque. So, personally, I think it's really interesting with the NFL being so anti-cannabis when you're talking about concussions, brain health, traumatic brain injury, opioid addiction, and pain. This plant just works for some people. That doesn't mean, if you're a mother and you're watching this and your little toddler just ran into the door and got a concussion, don't smoke them out. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that there might be a lot more synergistic biochemistry that's happening than we know right now. And with that said, also with mental illness, there have been research that suggests that if you have a predisposition, a family line of schizophrenia, cannabis may not be good at all. It may be really bad. But then you talk to people or you hear these stories about people with bipolar disorder who, along with taking their medicine and going to therapy and doing everything that they need to do, have added in cannabis and find that life is a little bit less intense. It's a little bit easier. So it really is something that you have to experiment with if you're an adult. But it's interesting. And my last point is that on the subject of how cannabis may help with concussions by removing that toxic plaque is what causes the symptoms of Alzheimer's. So the idea is that the underlying biomechanism is the same. Whether that can be duplicated with humans is a totally different story. But if you're interested in this idea of protecting the brain, using cannabis as a supplement may be a good way just from what we've heard so far. If you have anything interesting related to cannabis and brain health, mood, things like that, we would love to hear it, especially if it hasn't helped, because that's really kind of even more important for people to know. We will be back next week with C, and that's a surprise. But thanks for joining us. This is a really important topic, and we're only skimming the surface of it right now, so stick around.